Hello, I'm Jane Goldman. I've always been fascinated by psychic phenomena and the paranormal, and I am open-minded, but I'm also one of those kind of people who has a hard time believing in things if I haven't seen them for myself. So that's why I decided to take a very hands-on approach to my investigations into the paranormal. I've asked the experts whether they can teach me 10 different skills, and I've got just a month to learn each one. At the end of the 4 weeks, I'm going to be tested. What have I let myself in for?
This week, I'll be discovering if I can change the world with just a wave of my wand as I explore the magical world of witchcraft.
It seems that there's been an explosion in the popularity of witchcraft and spellcasting recently. Heaven knows where it came from, but everywhere you look, there's Hollywood's idea of teenage witches on TV, the bookshops full of spell books and obviously Harry Potter. But I think it seems like people have forgotten the roots of witchcraft. So we've come here to absolutely glorious Cornwall, where, well, Merlin, of course, one of the world's most famous and first witches, came from. And we've come to meet Zeldy and Nigel. They're the high priestess and priest of the Temple of Estra.
Lords of the North, lords of all practicality, lend your wisdom and strength to these words, that they may bring inspiration and true knowledge to she for whom it is intended. And this is my will.
Zeldy and Nigel follow a branch of witchcraft called Alexandrian Wicca. Like all other schools of witchcraft, this works closely with nature and the elements. They were busy with some sort of complicated ritual, and it was becoming obvious to me that learning enough to cast a successful spell in just 1 month was going to be a big challenge.
How long have you been practicing? I mean, do you call yourself witches?
Yes, yes. We've been involved in the craft, as we refer to it, for some 30-odd years.
Really?
It's a lifelong path for us.
I'm so fascinated by it, and I'm prepared to enter into it with the right spirit. But is there any hope for me in terms of actually? I mean, I'm prepared to learn, and I'm very keen to learn. But is there hope for me of actually causing anything to happen?
Yes, absolutely you will. Because bear in mind, if you do this right, something will happen to you. Not to the outside environment, it'll happen to you, and you'll feel it. If you've done it right, you will feel it.
And to that end, here is the start of your grimoire.
Oh my goodness.
So
Now what's a grimoire? Wow,
A
this is
grimoire is
beautiful,
the
thank
old
you.
medieval spell book.
Oh my goodness, thank you. So what kind of things would one write in a grimoire?
Spells, little chants, little poems. You would write dreams, certainly dreams.
Notes, just make notes. We've started you off with your runic alphabet. You're going to have to learn a magical alphabet. Now, you might have to practice a few times. So practice, use your book to practice.
Right.
Write it in there. Learn how to design a charm, a talisman.
So here, this is the symbol for fire.
That's right.
This is
So
water.
you have the practical ones. Here you do fire. Jen? Fire.
Oh, I see. So you do it with your
Water.
fire.
Water.
Water. So you invert it, yeah.
Air.
I'd come across the magical elements of fire, earth, air and water before, but I wasn't too sure how they all fitted into spellcasting, so I made a mental note to find out more about them later.
We know they're not really elements. We know fire isn't an element, all you scientists out there. But as far as magic goes, it is an element. In the
It's
same
symbolic.
Way, that's right. In the same way, I've done your planets in there for you.
Ah.
We know the sun isn't a planet. Thank you very much.
Now, I guess I should start gathering stuff to put in my grimoire, making some notes. Where should we go?
Most people find that they're easiest to start off with the water element.
Really?
Because that's emotional and it starts to make you feel different straight away. So what we thought might be a good idea is if you make a bowl to contain water, because it's very much a tradition that a witch makes her own tools. Zelda and I both made our swords, our themis, which is the witch's knife, and so forth. But you'll make a bowl which is a lot simpler, for the simple reason that it contains all 4 elements. Fire from the kiln, earth, the clay itself, water to wet the clay to make it, and air to dry it. So there's all 4 elements in pottery.
And that's why the name Potter is a natural, magical name. So
Really?
so all people called Potter are natural witches.
Really?
There you go.
That's a
Wonder if J.K. Rowling knew that. So, making my own pot was going to be my very first magical act. I'd never thought that doing something so practical could also involve magic. As we headed for the local pottery, I wondered if Zelda or Nigel were going to tell me about some secret magical incantation or ingredient that was going to turn my ordinary pot into a magical one.
Listen, don't forget, you're not aiming at perfection, you're aiming at putting your intentions into the earth. You're working with the earth element, or the earth and water at the moment.
So it doesn't have to be perfect.
So it's not perfect. This is going to become your magical project.
I'm very happy to hear that.
I hadn't done any pottery since double art when I was at school. They were just as hard as I remembered.
Sorry, that's not easy.
Zelda had told me to put my will, my intention, into what I was making. But it was taking all my concentration trying to turn the whizzing lump of clay into a pot, even without trying to add Zelda's magic ingredient.
It's gone all over the shop now.
But finally, something recognisable appeared.
Is that right?
Just trim it, it'll make it easier.
Oh,
I'll take it off.
exciting. Oh, now we can just squash it.
Now that I'd made my first magical object successfully, I wanted to know how big a part magic and spells played in a
Also,
witch's
you'll find
life.
that once you've started to do magic on yourself and for yourself, you do begin to exude this aura of magic. And that's when people will start coming to you saying, oh, can you do a spell for me as well?
The most commonly asked for spell, of course, is a love spell.
Yeah.
Everybody wants everybody else to fall in love with them, it seems.
When you do them for people, do they always work?
No, spells don't always work. If you forgive the pun, it's not waving a magic wand and making things happen, in a Paul Daniels sort of way.
Right.
You're giving an assistance to the forces of the universe. You're enabling. You're not forcing.
A love spell is making you attractive, it's not the other way around, it's working on
okay.
yourself. All magic works on yourself.
All spells work on you? That sounded like a 21st century take on witchcraft, and certainly wasn't the way it had been seen in the past. For thousands of years, the idea that magic spells could influence the real world was central to witchcraft. People visited witches for spells to improve harvests, cure illness, even provide wind to power their boats. And that's the image that had stuck in everyone's mind. Along the cliffs in the village of Boscastle, we visited a museum dedicated to the history of witchcraft. As well as featuring all the usual things we associate with the traditional view of witches, it did have some very unusual exhibits. Forgotten witchcraft was a fertility cult.
Definitely representative of the male.
I thought you'd spot that somehow.
Spotted that.
But there's a practical purpose, because witchcraft is, of course, a fertility cult.
Right.
And male energy is equally important to female energy. But that's also why a good witch always keeps her broom erect.
Really?
Because hidden under here is the real size version of one of these.
What's the connection between the brooms and the flying? Because presumably no one was flying literally. Is it a symbolic
Well, it's
thing?
symbolic. It was a connection with the other world. It was a shamanic journey. This flying ointment was part of it. I'm sure you can tell me more.
It was probably belladonna, bear's grease and other unpleasant substances.
So hallucinogenic.
Hallucinogenic substances which would have made people fly.
And what was the connection with the broomstick and the flying ornament?
Well, that's a bit rude,
Oh, is it?
because as we've already discovered, underneath the bristles of the broomstick is the functioning
Carved
part,
bit. Yeah.
carved bit,
Yeah.
yes. And this may have been used internally
Oh, to apply the
with
ointment.
the
Good
flying
heavens.
ointment on it.
So quite a different sitting on a broomstick image
Quite
than the one we're used to.
quite a different form of sitting as well.
Absolutely.
Well, that was a revelation. The reality of witches and their broomsticks was just as bizarre as the myth.
I'm really surprised at how much I've responded to the ideas of the, I guess, the religious side of the craft, as they call it. I mean, I suppose that whole idea about the connection with nature and of the outdoors itself being your place of worship makes so much sense, especially when it's somewhere beautiful like this. It, you know, all of that makes perfect sense, because you do feel a real sense of wonder when you look at these, you know, majestic cliffs and the sea and the harbour, and to, in a sense, for that to be something spiritual, you just feel it. While we were filming, this lady came out of her house and said she hoped that her house wasn't in the shot because she was Christian and she absolutely would refuse to have anything to do with witchcraft, and she was openly hostile. And I was so shocked, because Salty and Nigel was standing right there, and if you substitute the word witchcraft with the word Judaism or Muslim or, you know, any other religion, it would be the most shocking bit of bigotry and just really just the most horrendous thing to witness.